Hello guys, I thought I'd do a video of me starting a brand new save and just running you through how to set up your game, what to look out for, and then going through like the main screen, so the tactics, a little bit of scouting, sorting out your staff, a bit more of an in-detail view of the tactics with the player instructions, looking at set pieces, just all the things that you need to look for at the start. Because I noticed that my my brother's just started playing the game in the last month or so, and I was telling him to do certain things, and he was basically, I thought it was just that everybody knew how to do it, but obviously when you first start out, you don't know how to play the game at all. So I'm just going to quickly run you through absolutely everything you need to look for, and hopefully it'll help you out with your game. So we're going to start off by creating a new career. It's actually changed this part on the new game, on this game, the 2017 game, where you actually select your team before you load the leagues. They've done this, I presume, because the advanced setup, as it's called now, it is a little bit confusing, especially if you're first starting out. So in this save, I think we're just going to start as Inter. Pretty high up team. Probably most of you who are starting out brand new on the game will probably choose a team that's in a top division somewhere. So I think going into Serie A is not a bad starting point. Now you can start it with a quick start, which I think takes into account your computer speed and loads leagues that are around the country that you've picked, and probably the league below the one that you're in if you're in the top division as well. But I'm actually just going to run you through the advanced setup on this part. So it'll be brought over to this screen. Obviously it's loaded these leagues in at the moment, which it presumes are the ones that are major nation, as it says here, which should bring through quite a few players that are going to be good leagues and good players for you to look at. But I'm actually going to just go into the add remove leagues down here, which brings you through to this screen, which was the old screen that they used to use in the older games. Now they've got these green stars next to the nations that are, I think it's neighbouring nations and key nations with obviously the best players and the best leagues. So if I was to start a save with Inter, what I would do is I would select all the top leagues, so I'd include France. I'd probably put Holland in there, to be honest. Portugal, definitely. You can leave all those out. One that I've started putting in recently, obviously because they've started buying a lot of players, is China. They do have quite a few decent players over there now, and as well as Brazil, I always put Argentina in because obviously there's some good youngsters in Argentina as well as Brazil. Apart from that, though, I think you could probably get away with the rest. I mean, Belgium you could probably load if you had a little bit of a quicker computer. It literally just depends how fast you want the game to process, because the way that it works is that the more leagues you load, the more games it has to process in the background. Whereas when you haven't got the league loaded, it basically just, I presume at the end of the season, just generates like a randomized league finish for the team. So it's not like they actually play any matches. Whereas when you actually load the league themselves, it actually means that you've got to process that game in the background. And obviously when it comes to the end of the transfer window as well, it'll be processing all those transfers, and also it'll be doing different bits of manager shortlists and things like that. So it's actually those AI teams buying players as well. So we'll leave Belgium out on this one, just so that I don't think there's any real need to do it at this moment in time. Apart from that, you could maybe put Russia in. You could maybe put Turkey in as well. There's some good players in both of those nations, but I think that what we've got there is okay. So what you would do is you just click confirm, and you've got these leagues now displayed. So then when you click on these, you've basically got the actual leagues underneath. So the way that I do it is that, because I'm in Italy at the moment, I would always leave the league below in, just so that it gives you a little bit more of the youngsters coming through. Obviously a team in Serie B might produce a really good youngster, so it's just worth having the league below. And then if I was playing this save, I would just literally select the top league out of each of these nations. I do kind of like to include the championship usually, but we won't do it for this one. So if we just select the top league out of these, and that should then boost my game speed up a little bit. Now the thing with this game speed is that I don't think it actually tells that really a true, it's not really a true reflection on what actually goes on. I think that it's more a ratio based speed. I think that because I've played many games where it's just been half a star, and I mean I've got this is like a really good Mac. It's the latest 5K Mac. It's got all the top features in it and things like that. And I've played games where I've loaded probably another 10 leagues maybe, and it's basically said that I've got half a star. But when I've actually played the save, it's been absolutely fine to play. It's not really processed for too long, things like that. So that's not really too much of an issue, I don't think. Obviously, if you have got quite a slow computer or it's just not really the quickest, then this might be, you don't really want to go below 1 star if you do think that your computer is not going to be able to handle it. So the other thing that I looked at, I did mention this in the start of my Journeyman videos, is the database size. So you can go small, medium, and large, and basically all that means is, as you can see, the player count just goes down a little bit, and obviously the smaller you do it, the less players there'll be, and the quicker the game will be. I always go for a large database though. I want it to include as many players as it can, and I think it's more based upon the nations that you didn't load, how many other players it's going to include from all the other nations, and obviously if you haven't got these nations in, you're going to want the best players from the other nations that are there. So I'd always select a large one. Again, if you have got a bit of a slower computer, then maybe go for a medium. I'm sure you'll be fine. I mean, it's only 3,000 players, but you just don't know who those players might be. And usually I'll find that once you get into the game, or if you've got really good football knowledge of different nations, you don't want to load a medium database and then in a month's time after you've started playing your game, realise that one of the players that you wanted hasn't actually been loaded. So that's just definitely something to look out for. At the bottom here, the advanced options. The use fake players and staff is basically like having a full game of regens. Now, I did wonder for a while why they include this, but I think it's because once you've played a few saves, especially if you've played sort of like 5 or 6 seasons or as much as like 15 seasons or something like that, you'll pretty much know all of the best players. So to do that from the start basically means that you can start a new game after you've learned all the best current players that are actually the real life players. You can select that from the start, and it's basically just like generating a completely brand new game, and you won't know all the best players, and obviously it's a little bit more fun to do that. In terms of real fixtures, that's just obviously hit or miss if you want. I tend to just tick, I don't want to use the real fixtures. I don't really know why I do that, but I just decided one time that that's what I wanted to do. Don't add key staff is basically that at the beginning of the game, you may have to go through your staff and have a look and see whether you want to keep them or not. And if you don't want to keep them, then you'll have to mutually terminate, which I'll show you later in this video. So if you didn't want to have any staff at all, that will pretty much remove every single member of staff that the club has as soon as you join them. So like if I did this on Inter now, I would join and I'm pretty sure it would just be me and maybe 1 or 2 other staff. I usually don't tick that because I want to keep the staff that are there, because usually there'll be some decent staff. It's not like the end of the world. If you have to mutually terminate one person, and it's a bit of a ball ache having to go through and get a whole new set of staff, to be honest. So I usually leave that unticked. Disable first window transfer budget. So this is if you want to play more of like a realistic save. Obviously the game came out in November, so all of the transfers have been done. So basically what that's saying is, do you want to just start as you would if you had started at the end of this transfer window? I never tick that because obviously you want to do some transfers at the beginning. It's my favourite part of the game is doing transfers, so I don't tick that one. Disable player attribute masking is that when you look for a player and you've not got a full scouting knowledge of him, it'll basically either completely not show you the stat, or it will display like a range, so it might be between 12 and 16. And what this does is it basically just allows you to see all of the stats of all of the teams and all of the players. I don't do that because it makes the game a lot more difficult if you can't see the players, and I think it's a little bit silly if you could see every single player's stats, but it may be if you're first starting out, it might be something worth doing just to get a little bit of a better feel for the game before trying to do something that's a little bit more difficult. But as I said with the fake players and staff thing before, it's that once you know all the good players, that kind of removes the fun out of the game a little bit, because you can just go and buy the same sort of players at the beginning and you know you're going to get a good team. Prevent teams that would already have managers from being controlled. That's a bit more for network games, I would think. So basically it won't allow someone else to come and take over a team that's already got a human controlling them, so there's no need to do that. And then prevent use of the in-game editor. So on the last game, I think it was a Steam add-on that you could buy for about £5, and it was basically that you can't actually edit any stats or anything like that, but you can sort of like I think, cancel contracts without any fees and just things like that. So obviously I don't want to use that, so I'm just going to tick that anyway, even though obviously it was not going to make any difference because I'm not going to use it and I'm not playing an online game. But if you were playing an online game, then I would definitely recommend selecting that. So then you've got the game start date, which is in the bottom right. Now you can see that the Italy one starts on the 9th of the 7th, which is when the Italian transfer window opens. So it makes sense to leave that as this. However, what I end up doing is I like to get a little bit more time in pre-season. So I know that England, I think Germany used to be a little bit earlier. So England is the 1st of the 7th, which is only obviously like a week or so before. But I'll always do that just to get myself a little bit more time, because you never know, you might end up scouting for the first week. So by the time that the window opens, you've just got a little bit of a better view of all the players that are currently available in your sort of scouting set. So we're going to start with that, and I'll come back to you when we get to the manager screen. Okay, so we've just got to the manager profile screen. So I'm just going to create a new profile for this just to walk you through everything that you go through. So obviously you've got the name, pretty self-explanatory, nationality, place of birth, favourite team. This has a little bit of an effect on what you do. I think that if your favourite team, so I've got mine selected as Man United, so potentially Man United might be a little bit more interested in coming in for me at a later point in the game, because obviously that's my favourite team. As well as that, if you go to a team that's a rival, so say I went to like Liverpool, there would be some press conference questions which would basically say, why have you gone to Liverpool? Because you're a Man United supporter. So it does play a little bit of a part in the game, but it's not like an overriding feature or anything like that. They added this, and I think it was either this year or last year, as a preferred formation. This really doesn't make any odds, and it does change over time. So the more you play a formation in your matches, this will just adapt to whatever you've played. So I just leave that as just nothing in there, to be honest. Responsibilities. Now you can select certain things here which will affect the staff responsibilities, which is another thing that I'll cover in this video as well. At the moment, I just leave that as handle all tasks myself. Usually, I'll leave pretty much everything to myself anyway, but there is a couple of things that I will take off, and there's a couple of things that recently that I've started to change, which I think has helped the game a little bit, and it's also speeded it up a little bit as well. So this is a new feature, is the generate a face. You basically upload a photo of yourself, put some dots on your face, and it'll basically generate a character for yourself. I think it's actually quite a good feature, to be honest, because beforehand you didn't get to do any of this, and it just makes it a little bit more personalised. So yeah, this is all completely up to you. Managerial style. So this is basically what you will, these are your starting attributes. Now, you've basically got these two boxes at the top, which will basically determine these two values based upon the team that you selected. So if I untick both of these, you've basically got all of these options, which obviously as you get higher, the more stats unlocks down here. So for the purpose of this, we'll just select suggest experience. Is not the end of the world. So then you've then got this, which you have actually got certain like default sets that you can do. So yeah, that's something you could do, or you could just default one and you can select them yourself. And then you've got this bar where you can basically move towards either more of a coach, or less of a coach and more of a sort of tactical or mental manager. So what I usually do is I'll put it to about here. I might click it one more this way if I'm playing for if I'm managing in a lower league team, because I might want to put one of my attributes here up so that I can actually do some coaching myself while I'm at that team, so I don't need another coach to fill my space. But because I'm at Inter and they're going to have some good coaches, it's not going to be the end of the world if I can't really do any of these. Say if I can't coach attacking or defending or whatever, they're going to have an attack and a defence coach, so it's not a big deal. So one way that you can free up some points is that you're going to have a fitness coach, you're going to have a goalkeeper coach at least, so you can tick those two down to 1, because it's not going to affect you at all. I usually put youngsters up pretty high so that you respond well to any youngsters, and I presume it will boost your youngsters' stats up a little bit more and they might get a little bit better a bit quicker. Apart from that, another key one is mental. So I'll probably put that up to say 16, 17, maybe something like that. I like to put tactical up, and I do like a bit of technical as well. So I think that's just quite a nice rounded coaching attribute selection, to be honest. In terms of these ones, so adaptability is how well you'll work in another country. So it does matter which nationality you are. Another thing that I should have said with the last screen is that when you select your nationality, you can do a sub-nationality, which you could choose. I mean, it's not, if you aren't really Spanish, sub-nationality, and it's a little bit of like cheating, but you could put that and you actually then know the Spanish language. So for example, I could have done it as Italian on this one and I would have already known Italian. So I could have spoken the language when I went over, which does actually make a difference in terms of how your players will respond, and particularly when it actually comes to the actual players themselves playing together, you want them to speak a language. And I found that it didn't have as much of an effect about 2 games ago, but in the last game and this game, it's made much more of a difference, and you can see a big boost. Sometimes your player might not be playing too well, and say sort of in January, they'll start playing much better, and that might be just because they've started learning Italian, and it might be that it's on basic Italian, or they might have ended up really doing well and gone on a language course, and they might know it fluently, and now they can actually speak to their teammates. So yeah, you could do that if you wanted to. Again, if you were just starting out, then it might be something worth doing if you are going to manage in another country. So adaptability is basically how well you're managing another country. So I want to leave this pretty high. Obviously, these stats are really high anyway because I'm managing at Inter. So 17 is probably a good number anyway, because I want to put one more on motivation, which I think is key, because you do a lot of team talks across the season. You might need to do like a team meeting at some point in time if things aren't going too well, or if things are going really well and you need to give them that final push at the end of the season. So I'd always put one onto motivation. Determination, in terms of the game itself, when you actually have a coach, for example, if you were looking at a coach's stats, what it works out as is determination, discipline, and motivation are used and times by, in some sort of formula, by whatever it is. So for example, if you were getting an attack coach, you'd be looking at his attack stat, maybe his tactical or technical stat, and then his motivation, discipline, and determination. So those 3 stats are key stats on the mental attribute side. Determination also means that you can get more out of the board. So for example, if you ask for a bit more money, or if you want another scout, or any of the things that you can ask the board, which I will go over in this video as well, that's quite key. So I'm going to leave that high. In terms of player and youngster knowledge, that's basically just what you know at the beginning. Now, if I'm at a big team, which I am at the moment with Inter, I would probably take the hit on both of these, because it's not going to mean that much if I don't know too much about the players, because I'm going to be relying on my scouts more than myself. However, if I was at a team that was a bit lower down, I didn't think I was going to get too many good scouts, I might put that a little bit higher, so at least I know a little bit more. The only thing about that is, say you were an English manager and you were starting in, say, League 2 or the Blue Square Premier, or I think it's called Vanarama Conference now, you might want to put that a bit higher because you are English and you will have English knowledge. So that would be a good thing, because you'd know more about the players that are in England. But if you were starting in a different country, particularly one where maybe an English player wouldn't want to go to, it's kind of pointless to do this, because you've only got knowledge of England at the beginning. So you're only going to know English players, even if these are really, really high. So I'm just going to leave them at 16, which means that I can put my motivation to 20 and maybe put my adaptability back up to 18. In terms of man management, it's kind of like training, and a little bit sort of like players won't get as annoyed with you, or they'll be less likely to complain and things like that, which comes into the discipline as well, which basically means they won't bring up issues. So those two are kind of similar in the way that they work. I think that maybe man management might affect the training a little bit more than discipline, but as I said before, determination, management, discipline, motivation, they're kind of the key stats on this side. So 17 for this is absolutely fine. So we're going to confirm that.